As long as you're green, you're growing. But as soon as you ripen, you begin to rot. This really makes me think about change and improvement. Let's go back to the video that I made on one positive lifestyle change and talk about one of the actions that I recommended. And that was action number 5, which is, I think as we age, we should think about including more adventures and discoveries into our life. And I said there were 3 different types of adventures and discoveries. There were the micros, the easy ones to do that you can implement almost immediately. The macros take a little bit more work and a little bit more planning and maybe a little bit more time. And then the really big one is the transformative type adventures. Those are the adventures that change how we think and how we feel about the world. Now, if I engage in different adventures and discoveries, if they're micro, macro, or transformative, that means I'm moving out of my comfort zone. Or in other words, I'm in the process of changing one of my habits. And when we start to change our habits, we're going to encounter some resistance. So let's talk about that resistance today and how to overcome that. All right, so we're getting ready to take on that new discovery or adventure. And that really means that we're getting ready to change one or more of our habits. So let's talk about habit zones. What's going to happen as we start to bring about those changes, and what type of resistance do we normally run into? With the habit zones, we have comfort, fear, learning, and growth. So what happens as we go through this process of bringing on this new change in our life? Well, the first thing that happens is we're going to realize we're leaving our comfort zone. And we know what the comfort zone is like because we spend a lot of time there. Inside the comfort zone, it's safe. We feel in control and we feel at ease. And the reason why we feel that way is because we know what's going to happen next. It's the known. Also, the more time you spend in the comfort zone, the greater the chance is you're going to move into stagnation. And we know that stagnation means decline. So moving out of that comfort zone gives us this feeling of being not at ease and moving into an area that we don't know what's going to happen yet. That strikes a lot of fear in our hearts because this change is leading to uncertainty. Maybe one of the questions we end up asking ourselves is, what's going to happen next? Will I be able to do this? Will I be able to successfully get this accomplished? That leads to some self-doubt. And when we feel self-doubt, and that doubt is rising, sometimes we get this feeling like, you know what? Maybe I need to go back to this because I know what's going to happen up there. I don't know what's going to happen down here. Or in other words, when we get that sense, that feeling, that is really telling us, here's where we're at in the process, and we need to keep pressing onwards. Another way of saying that is, there's some discomfort, and that discomfort is going to increase depending upon the size of change that we bring about. Okay, after fear, next one up, we move into the learning habit zone. In the learning habit zone, this is where we learn new skills. Our confidence increases, and as our confidence increases, we are much more willing to want to continue this process. Our learning expands, and it expands my abilities and my skill set. And I don't know about you, but when I learn new things and I'm able to do those, my confidence grows. One of the biggest things about being in this zone is when we encounter a mistake, we learn from it and we improve. So when we encounter something that didn't go quite right, we figure out how and why it didn't go right, and then we don't repeat that mistake again. That is the learning zone. Next step up, after we've learned our new skills, we move into the zone of growth. And the biggest thing I think we're going to see here is we take on new challenges, and those challenges lead to new goals, and those new goals and challenges improve who we are and how we think about what we're capable of doing. We also develop a much bigger sense of resilience, that I've worked through the fear and the learning part, and I'm much more capable now of embracing this change that's coming up. When we feel like we have the skills to take on a challenge, that means I'm willing to push my limits and move beyond where I currently am. Now, this is a very natural process, and I'm sure everybody listening to this has been through this different times in your life. But if I can understand what's happening when I'm in those zones, then it gives me a much better way of dealing with some of the concern and the fear and the uncertainty that comes up as we start to bring about that new change and go about our discovery or that new adventure. Now, there's one other part that we need to add in here, and that's for this blank space right up here. So what happens if I take on an adventure or a discovery that is way beyond my capabilities? Well, first, we're going to move through these different habit zones, but soon what we're going to find out is we go into the last zone up here, which is the panic zone. And the panic zone happens when the challenge that I am undertaking is absolutely overwhelming. It is way beyond my capabilities. And when it is overwhelming, that means we become non-productive because we're unable to master in the learning part down here that new skill set and make that skill set part of my new habits. When we are in panic, the biggest thing is if we persist in trying to take on this challenge, it can lead to burnout, or it leads to paralysis, where I just stop in place and don't know what to do. So I don't want to take on a challenge that is so far beyond my capabilities that I feel overwhelmed, and I really want to stay out of this zone and stay back down here where I'm learning, growing, and taking on those new habits and adventures. Now, if you'd like to get the mind map for this presentation, the link is in the description below.